coming up.
Pretty confronting. An outlaw motorcycle group running a company that had got a government contract.
Allegations of corruption.
Senior officials brag about rivers of gold.
Links to Bikies.
It's outrageous.
Massive secrecy.
Why are Bikies being paid to look after refugees in Nauru?
Is this the grubbiest deal Canberra has ever done?
How on earth is that possible?
I've got no idea.
That's next on 60 Minutes.
Nauru is not only one of the world's tiniest countries, a dot in the Pacific, it's also one of the most corrupt. But that doesn't seem to bother the Australian government, which is throwing billions of dollars at the place. The reason? Nauru has agreed to take a number of former detainees, or non-citizens as they're called, that Canberra is desperate to get rid of. As an upfront payment, Australia has already committed over $400 million to Nauru's dodgy government, which is led by a man who's allegedly pocketed money for himself and his cronies on multiple occasions in the past. Adding to the stench of this deal is the refusal of our government to engage in a public defence of it. If ever there was an example of dirty politics, it's this. A murky deal hatched in secret in Canberra's corridors of power and sneakily unveiled without fanfare late on a Friday.
Home Affairs Minister Tony Burke has met with the President of Nauru to sign a deportation deal.
Literally paying one of the poorest nations in the world to clean up problems that this government doesn't like.
The agreement means hundreds of former immigration detainees deemed too dangerous for Australia will be banished to the tiny Pacific island of Nauru for the next 30 years. It's a neat solution for one of the government's greatest headaches, but it's not cheap.
Well, it is my great pleasure to welcome President Adeang back to Canberra.
$400 million up front, followed by up to another $70 million each and every year for the next 3 decades. It's a heck of a lot of your money, up to $2.5 billion over the lifetime of the arrangement, which perhaps explains why Labor's been so secretive about it. In fact, very few knew that Home Affairs Minister Tony Burke even went to Nauru until its government posted this photo on its Facebook site. It shows Burke alongside President David Adeang inking this very rich deal for his impoverished nation. Despite the happy snap though, Adeang himself is perhaps another reason Minister Burke may have wanted to keep his trip quiet. That's because the President has long been implicated in corruption scandals. But in Nauru, he's not alone. The country seemingly runs on dodgy dealings, and the Australian government is seemingly prepared to look the other way. Take how security is being organised on the island as an example.
It's a complete joke. They've let the corruption continue for so long. I think they have got no idea how to manage it.
Former soldier O'Sheen Donohoe is a security and protection expert who's been caught up in the fiasco of the latest detainees being sent to Nauru. Astonishingly, he was hired by a company linked to the Finks outlaw motorcycle gang that somehow was allowed by the Nauruans to help manage the latest Australian immigration outcasts under what's called the Third Country Reception Arrangement.
They leveraged my veteran status to be able to help secure the contract.
They thought they could use you.
Yeah.
And they were sorely mistaken.
Very sorely mistaken.
O'Sheen is one of 2 courageous whistleblowers who tonight are exposing the inner workings of our immigration operations. The other is still employed top Home Affairs bureaucrat Derek Elias. Do you have any doubt that money has been corruptly pocketed at great scale?
Oh, there's no doubt in my mind that that happened and continues to happen.
O'Sheen Donohoe believes deeply in service to his country. A former rifleman in the Australian Army, he's proud of the 4.5 years he spent as a soldier.
When I left the military, my oath didn't end with my discharge. I take that oath quite seriously and I carry it on with everything that I do.
It's a sense of duty that was rekindled in February this year, when he was offered a rapid response security role on Nauru. His employer, a little-known company called the Safe Hands Group.
To my knowledge, Safe Hands at the time was simply a construction company, and it kind of boggled my mind how a construction company that had only been around essentially 2 or 3 years could get a contract doing such significant work.
In March, O'Sheen signed a contract with Safe Hands and prepared to be deployed. But after a series of delays, he became suspicious and began digging into the company's history. What he found left him gobsmacked. His boss was none other than a bikie gang leader.
When those alarm bells started ringing, I did my own research to find that Ali Bilal, the president of the Finks, was actually shadow directing Safe Hands Group. It was pretty confronting to know that an outlaw motorcycle group was running a company that had got a government contract.
Ali Bilal, worldwide president of the Finks outlaw bikie gang, also Australian taxpayer subcontractor.
Yes.
Do you think it's possible the Australian government did not know that he was behind this company?
I don't think there's any way possible that they didn't know, but somehow they've been given this contract to oversee quite a significant national security item on the agenda.
Ali Bilal is a well-known figure in the underworld. Despite a criminal history and time in jail, the global head of the Finks outlaw motorcycle gang has been able to direct a raft of companies and now try to make a profit ultimately from the public purse.
The fact that a contract worth millions of dollars can flow to a company that's ultimately owned by the head of the Finks outlaw motorcycle gang is outrageous. I mean, why are bikies being paid in Nauru? We shouldn't be lining the pockets of these guys. It's terrible.
For corruption expert Clancy Moore of Transparency International, the situation would be laughable if it weren't so serious.
What does it tell us about the state of the system, the Australian government system today, that right now there is a company very closely aligned with the Finks outlaw motorcycle gang with a key contract on Nauru?
It says two things. Either they're not doing their due diligence or they're choosing to look the other way.
The second surely can't be right. You're saying they know a bikie company's involved and they're still choosing to engage?
Well, look, any government official can do a quick search and would realise that that company is ultimately owned by the head of the Finks Outlaw Motorcycle Group. It's pretty easy to do.
His concerns about the operation meant O'Sheen never did deploy to Nauru. But over months of group chats, he learned more about the company.
AFP has confirmed that they will provide a formal start date through Home Affairs once their internal logistics are finalised.
And remarkably, how it would apparently be supported by the Australian Federal Police.
So throughout my time at Safe Hands Group, we were told in the initial phases that we'd be working alongside AFP, who would also be involved with taking our gear over there around Easter time of this year.
This therefore means, does it not, that a bikie-linked security company would be partnered with our federal policing agency?
Yes.
How on earth is that possible?
I've got no idea. And surprisingly, for the kind of work that we would be doing, no security clearances were required, which I find quite unbelievable. The Safe Hands Group did their own background checks on the people they took on.
We would hardly trust a bikie-linked company to do proper background vetting.
Yeah.
Since the Howard government introduced the Pacific Solution in 2001, the use by Australia of Nauru as a border security outpost has been dogged by controversy and plagued by corruption. Things were quiet there for a few years, but are now ramping up. Currently, more than 100 asylum seekers are detained on the island from recent boat arrivals in Australia, along with the first of the non-citizens from the separate, freshly inked deal with the Albanese government. We can reveal they've now been joined by a group of safe hands contractors who just last week flew out of Brisbane to begin their work.
The fact that this corruption goes quite high up the chain, it needs to be called out once and for all, because I do not want to see my government continue to hand over money without doing their proper checks.
You use the term corruption. It's a big word. What do you see as fundamentally corrupt?
The entire system of contract procurement for offshore work involving immigration.
If it all sounds like a shambles, it is. The truth is, consecutive governments have been squandering vast sums of taxpayer dollars in the South Pacific for years. The beneficiaries are corrupt Nauruan politicians and the fat cat bosses of the companies called on by Canberra to fix its immigration problems. But there's one man who wants you to know just how grubby it's become. Have you wrestled with the idea of coming forward as a whistleblower?
Yes, it's been on my mind for a very long time, but ultimately I think it's almost a duty.
A duty?
Yes.
Coming up, the view from the inside.
Senior officials in the department would talk and brag about rivers of gold.
A free-for-all at the taxpayer's expense.
We have spent money that we shouldn't have, and it's gone to people who have put it in their own pockets.
Derek Elias is a senior government official in the Department of Home Affairs.
Derek, g'day.
Hello.
Thanks for joining us.
Who for 2 years oversaw offshore detention contracts on Nauru. He's so disgusted by the rot and waste of our asylum seeker regime that he's now blowing the whistle.
I think it's very important for the public to know how their money has been misspent.
To be clear, you're not allowed to speak up, are you?
Technically, no.
Public servants have been charged for speaking to the media.
Yes, I understand that.
You're willing to risk dismissal or worse, a criminal charge to speak up?
Well, yes, I am.
In 2021, Derek walked off the job, taking sick leave and claiming his role had left him a nervous wreck. But he hasn't stopped agitating against the Home Affairs Department, which has returned fire.
The department has accused you of being dishonest, of bearing a grudge, of trying to get a payout. How do you respond to those accusations?
Tired of it, Nick. I'm really, really sick of it. I don't think that I've done anything wrong. Why would I have to apologise or feel guilty about pointing out that we have spent money that we shouldn't have and it's gone to people who have put it in their own pockets?
Derek insists what he discovered inside the system from 2019 explains why so many rotten firms have made a mint in Nauru on your dime.
We created an enabling environment for corruption, I think. We were renewing contracts which were no longer fit for purpose. We were overpaying for services that were no longer required or delivered.
Aussie taxpayers paying for services that actually didn't exist?
Correct.
One company that made a mozza was Aussie firm Construct. It ran the immigration offshore regime on Nauru for Home Affairs until late 2022. In that time, we can now reveal it's suspected of stealing large sums from the Australian taxpayer and the contracts Derek was overseeing.
What sort of money are we talking about?
In the last contract that I oversaw, that was the renewal of Construct in mid-2021, up to $16 million that we didn't need to pay for.
You're talking about tens of millions of dollars that were corruptly or fraudulently spent?
Over time, yes, I believe it would add up to that amount easily.
How can we be paying for a service that is not being delivered or is not required?
I found it very confronting.
Did you try to speak up internally?
I did. But there was a very strong culture within that Home Affairs regime at the time where questioning the decisions to keep things going in Nauru would not be conducive to your employment.
You're expected to stay quiet about corruption concerns.
You're expected to stay quiet about your concerns, absolutely.
With its huge profits, Canstruck's owners bought mansions like this one, and jewellery and fancy art, leaving it on display in this real estate advertisement. Federal police are now investigating allegations Canstruct criminally used taxpayer funds to pay for the insurance on fine artworks worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, as well as this yacht and an $800,000 supercar. Despite his concerns, Derek, who is now a police witness, claims he was powerless to do anything about it at the time.
How can it be you're suspicious of Canstruct, you think they might be rorting, and yet you say Canstruct is calling the shots even though it's involving Australian taxpayer funds?
Yes, we didn't have any leverage to negotiate.
What level could they charge without getting scrutinised?
Millions of dollars.
Without any checks?
We weren't able to ask them to produce receipts or documents of that. It was written into the contract.
Canstruct also paid huge sums to subcontractors owned by suspected corrupt Nauruan politicians, which Derek Elias has alleged were engaged in their own major rorting.
Canstruct had a very cosy relationship, I would say, the government of Nauru, providing additional services and favours, sweeteners, if you will, that they paid to the government of Nauru, which I found quite shocking.
Favours, sweeteners, it all sounds terribly dishonest.
Well, you know, training the president's guard dogs, etc., a whole range of different things.
How is training the president's guard dog in any way associated with running an asylum seeker regime on Nauru?
Well, it's not.
For Clancy Moore of Transparency International, Derek Elias's account is a critical step towards removing the veil of secrecy that shrouds our operations on Nauru.
It's very significant. As an Assistant Secretary of the Department, he's had an inside look literally under the bonnet of all these contracts. And the fact that he's been brave enough to blow the whistle on what's taken place over many years is huge. I mean, you know, good on him. Like, he's taken a huge step, and I hope there's some accountability from it.
Very good to see you. Good to see you. There certainly should be, because anyone dealing with Nauru's leader, President David Adiang, needs to be on their guard.
How would you describe David Adiang, the president of Nauru, and many in his cabinet?
You could say that it's a kleptocracy in the fact that you have politicians essentially embezzling funds, stealing public money to line their own pockets. It's a classic definition of kleptocracy, actually.
Does the Australian government know that David Adiang is corrupt?
Absolutely. It's well documented.
Why on earth would they hand him and his government another $400 million just this year?
It's a disgrace, to be honest. It's an absolute disgrace. I mean, it's a question best asked to the government, but clearly they're willing to put that aside for a greater political purpose.
On that, this Home Affairs insider agrees. Derek Elias insists it's time for the system to change and the secrecy to end.
How can it be that a government department, according to you, is turning a blind eye or tacitly supporting the corrupt abuse of Australian taxpayer dollars by Nauruan officials?
Well, I think basically, Nick, it's to make sure that the regime that's set up there is maintained.
At any cost?
At any cost, literally at any cost, yeah.
We asked the Home Affairs Minister, Tony Burke, for an interview, but he refused. His department, however, has provided a statement which you can read on our website. Hello, I'm Nick McKenzie. Thanks for watching 60 Minutes Australia. Subscribe to our channel now for brand new stories and exclusive clips every week. And don't miss out on our extra minutes segments and full episodes of 60 Minutes on 9now.com.au and the 9Now app.